All right, here is one part. This is the middle part of the center of the space dock. This is supposed to be the Nemesis, so this will work good for the Galaxy class starships. It's a space dock around that era, and it printed okay. Now this is the actual underneath. This will be like that. Um, then there'll be arms that come down and around, because this will sit like this, and it'll have those hook pieces that come down and around. But I had to slice this because it's so big. I had to slice it in this center part into 3 parts, so there'll be 2 ends that attach to this. This one has 4 of those arms coming down. These other ones have one on each side. But the nice thing is with the bamboo slicer is you can slice stuff, and then you can actually put connection pegs. So that's what these are. So I can connect those arms on. This will be where the other piece comes on, the other middle piece. This side, some reason, it wouldn't allow me to put any. It was giving me trouble with doing the connectors. I think because it was so, I don't know. I don't know if it was because that was when the model was a whole model, that so many pieces were off the plate that it just wasn't allowing it to even cut quite correctly. So I finally got it to cut, and still went to connectors, and I was just like, I'll just drill a couple holes and glue a couple pieces in there and make my own. This is all going to be epoxy together, so it should be pretty good. And I'm hoping, I think she's going to sit this way, because the Enterprise, I'm looking at this as the front, because the Enterprise is going to sit, I think, like this, with the saucer here and the drive section here. That way the saucer clears this piece here. Otherwise, I would have had to make this thing so tall. I have a base that I got to print yet, but I designed that the Enterprise will have a post going into, and then this will sit over top. And I wasn't sure if I was going to make this removable completely so you can look at the ship, or what. Still up in the air, but I think what I'm going to try to do is at least remove these two, have these 2 front ones removable, even if this front section here still has its arms on both sides. The back I'm not worried about, we'll glue secured. But I got to figure out how to get lights to plug in, because we want lights on those arms. It might even be as simple as I'm just going to run wires and make them look like conduits coming down, and have some type of connection here. Because I can't really get any wires, unless I bore through. I don't really have any way to get wires up, so I might have to do like a conduit and then a plug here and here. Yeah, it would have been nice to make it more in pieces so I could drill holes through. Getting into this solid piece would have been, a pain. Resin, if I did it resin-wise, I could have just hollowed this out. Because I think these are even windows, and I'm not even going to worry about lighting them. I just want to get those arms lit that glow around the whole ship. It's even going to be fun figuring out how to get power up to this, because the ship's going to have a rod. This I'm going to have to sneak it up one of those arms. Probably even have a connector down there just in case I want to take this off. And I'm trying not to have any type of support rod holding this up. I'm hoping the arms of all this will hold it, and then I can remove these, and then it still has 2 on this side to keep it from flopping down. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting. But I think probably the best way is just to make everything look like conduit and glue the wires down like pieces of conduit. Smaller wire I can use better, which magnet wire would be the smallest, but I don't think this would be that bad if I run these and tack them. And then once they get painted, they can kind of look like the display. Make them look like conduit running down the line there, and once it's like this, it shouldn't hopefully catch your eye. I can even have them come down here and this point come up and then curve over and run around so they're always hidden below. But I'm happy with this. I'm going to start cleaning off some of these supports. The one thing that happened, you can, I don't know if you can see, like there's a different build from there and there. At about 3 o'clock this morning, it had a jam. Still not 100% sure why. I think the nozzle was just clogged. So I was able to, one thing I love about the bamboo, you can take the hot end out really easy and run a guitar string down through it and clean it. I did that. And that seemed, I had to heat it up with the stove. Which is, you know, it cools down when it sits there and waits for you to fix the problem. Plus, it's hard to handle if it was too hot. So I had to run the tip under the stove to get it hot and then clean it out that way. But right now it's printing one of these other ends. I figure I get these ends done first and then start printing the legs that attach. But I think it's going to be cool. All right. I got another one of the top pieces done. These are the two end ones. This one I already cleaned up. But this one just got finished printing. So we'll go and clean up all these parts. I think it's best to do this. I'm trying to keep those. I was just going to redo them with wire, but they seem to be, I didn't think it would print it, to be honest. But they're a little bigger than I thought, so. I find sometimes you cut those, it's easier to pop them. There it goes. That's the way it was wrapped around. These little guys here come right off. I might actually take this mat off so it doesn't get stuck up with all these little tree braces. Get rid of the little ones, and then you can get rid of the big ones. Like I said, I was figuring I would have to build these. I didn't think I would make them, especially these ones that got cut because where I had to cut the file in half. It even did it. It even did make print the two ones, but then I decided to knock them off, which was a bad idea because I could have just probably glued them together. This one we got to do a lot of puttying up here, especially on this flat surface. I think everywhere else we're okay. We'll probably get these flatter up here. And we definitely got to do these tops here. But I think this part's all nice. I went through and sanded it, so it's a little foggy looking. But I wish I could have printed this one upside down like this, but it would have been a ton of supports for it to hold that up. But we'll continue to pull all these little pieces off. I'm finding the best things for these flat areas is I just go in here and just do that. Just kind of work your way in between the tree branches, the tree support branches, and just wiggle your way, and it breaks them loose. There's that piece of wire. Oh, that's coming off of there. And these here in the center will be the same. These are going to be a little more secured because they're probably going different. It's not probably porting one end, it's porting different parts, so you got to kind of break them off separately. But these are all holding the same kind of area, except for that very end one, because it's probably holding, supporting the holes that I made. When you split things in bamboo, it allows you to put connectors on the two parts so you can reconnect them. We still got, sometimes they're in there when they go in these holes. There we go. But a weird thing I found, that the ones I have, it'll put holes on one side and it'll put pegs on the other. What I'm finding is some of the pegs were not actually adhering, or they're not becoming part of the file, in the sense that it just, like here you can see it closes a wall and then prints this, which I would think it wouldn't. I would think it would tie that in with the infill in there and then build the outside. But yeah, so they just, some of them I found were not even stuck. They were only just being held there, which is weird. Well, those are on, and they're on good because I can shake them. Yeah, those are on there. That's good. Those that lost the two on the left. I find that's the best way to get those out. And sometimes, because it sent, this one tree sent in so many holes, if you try to pull it out at one time, it's not going to work. All right. Now, these are fun. Oh, still got this. I'm going to try to get rid of as much stuff around these harder ones, because it makes it easier. A lot of times it's the brim that it prints that holds them together. It's fairly strong. That brim part right there, that holds the trees down. This is like adding this as a base display. I think it's adding a lot more time to the build, but I think it's going to make it cool. And then I could always build another one of these for a different ship as well. This is the Nemesis, I think they're saying, space stock. And then there's another cool one, when I wouldn't mind having, is the style for the very first space stock for the NX1 and stuff. And then I see a couple that replicate the refit error. But I figured this would be the closest to where the Enterprise D would have probably saw. Since this Nemesis, that would be the E. And I think for this, I'm going to use my normal putty, not a perfect plastic putty. I probably could get away with a perfect plastic putty. It's really just filling. It's not nothing structural. But I'm thinking the old red car primer, or red car putty, will be fine. And I picked myself up a good primer filler to help fill any of the imperfections down here. Uh-oh. I don't know why any of these torches are not filling up with gas quite correctly. And before it cools, you just press down and they'll readhere. And that'll make anything strong again, gets rid of the little spirally thingies. Yeah, see, that's not all like where you can feel pieces lifting anymore. And we'll just go and putty in this nice smooth spots to putty on this. Here, I think these I can just get sanded and they're fine. But I just wanted to show you that. I think I'm going to, I don't know if I do all this puttying and sanding before I put them together. I'm thinking I might want to do it afterwards. So if I want to putty anything on them, else on it, because this will go, see if any of these line up. They're probably going to have to get filed. Yeah, those pegs. They're in the right spot, but I bet you the holes in the pegs need to be fitted. Because I bet you these holes are warped. Even as much as the supports try to, I can still see they're more oval than round. So probably what we'll do is, this is a 5mm, so I'll just take a 5mm drill bit and go in there. But we'll do that and make these fit. But I think if I can get these together and putty this as a whole. But now you're getting to see how big it is. You got that. And that. So it should be, well, let me put it in because it'll be really like that. The pegs out of the way. So, and I think the Enterprise is somewhere around 45 to 50 centimeters long. So I think the saucer will come out here. So that gives us nice area. And like I said, this I want to have, if we're right side, like that. Where this flows out towards the back of the star drive like that. Or if we did it right side up here, I want that to do that. But again, like I said, I can't make this, if I keep making it taller this way, even though I have the right length I want this way and that way, it looks like an arm like this instead of more like you see in the movies where it's hugging around the ships. And they are really close. But this piece, you would think would be a little smaller. But yeah, the more I stretch that, and the more I stretch that, the more this stretches too. So it kind of goes against, works against you. Because when you raise things in a slicer, if I want to pull it this way, it stretches, and then these get wider. You know, it doesn't make this longer, and then these, like these poles would not stay the same width; they would actually get wider. So, but I just wanted to show you that. I don't know if I got that window in back there. I used some of that. They call it a resin putty, but it's quite liquid like normal solar res. I figured putty would be something I would need a tool to scrape out and paste in. No, it's just like a thicker solar res, which is okay. So I had to actually put Scotch tape on this side, and then went and put that in there and tried to make it high enough. You know, it's definitely up flush, but it is a little bit higher so that it'll catch light. And I started doing these here. They're looking good, but we just got to finish the rest. But that goes really quick. I was just wanting to get a jump start on this and get it printed. Well, I didn't even get it split into three, multiple parts. We got 3 parts for the top, and then you got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those arms. So here's it glued together. I was able to drill out those holes to get them a little more round again, and filed the pegs and got this part in. This one is the side that the pegs didn't want to print, but got that side on as well. I did a little, I used both epoxy and super glue. Super glue mainly just to hold it in place until the epoxy cured. So what I did, since these are kind of triangular shaped, around the outside I did epoxy, and in the middle I put a little super glue, and then when I smashed them together and got them lined up, then the super glue will cure and grab and hold it together. Since there's no real way to clamp this, so I kind of had to hold it and line it up, which wasn't too bad. I just went off the bottom, which did well for the tops. But ideally, what I'm want to do is be able to still have these two, this one and this one. There's 2, each arm that comes down comes up to 2, these. So this would be one and this would be one. I'd like to make sure that I can have these removed, be able to be removed. Or do I just make it so this whole thing can back out? And really, it's going to be this way. If I have the Enterprise facing that way, she'll sit like this. And that way, this will be held up by all of them in the back and these 2 up front. And you can kind of remove those and get them out of the way. But like I said, I'm trying not to have anything hold. Like if I remove this whole front half, I'd have to have something to hold the whole top, the whole part. I'm trying not to do that. The only way to really do that without having anything is have something sneak up and go like this across here. Or we just remove this whole thing. We can just slide this whole thing off to see the starship better. Not sure. Or both. I think would probably be the best option. If I want to take this whole thing off, I could do that. And how to get power up into here, because it's separate from the ship. That's where a pole would come in handy, or something supporting this, because then you could run the wire up through it. Let's see what it looks like going down through here. Just like I said, sometimes you can hide your wire and just make it look like normal things, or we could do that. Which is probably the better way to go, because that's what they would probably do. Or you could run them up like this, like their other cabling. That's an idea too. Kind of like we have those cross braces up there. You could almost run them like that, the pair. What it would look like from the top. Oh, it wouldn't look too bad. It'd be a pair of them. But then what do we do here? So I think this, the only thing I like about having it up top is then I don't need much for it to go in jumper. I don't know if I can get to like a hole. Oh, I might be able to. That bit's long enough, and that's wide enough to get 2 wires in here. I might be able to, I might go ahead and drill a hole right here on the ones that it's going to go down. And she'll come out right here. That I'd be able to do. I went and got these little cob LEDs, the real small ones. It still has a jack on it, which I can use. But these small LED strips, which I think I can cut them in these darker areas. I see a dark stripe. I'll have to see. I'll have to see how they soldered there. But you have to solder on the back half. That's the weird thing. If I can get a couple of these, they might work. This is what I'm hoping will work for the lights on those arms. Like I said, there's no lights I want, and I think on this main thing. If so, maybe some lights out at the corners. I'll have to see pictures. There are pictures of these, and I can see if there's little corner lights. Wouldn't be bad. I don't think they'd have them red or green. That really doesn't matter. But even if they're yellowish, kind of like you look at construction areas or big factories and stuff like that. Like where I live, there's a lot of cement factories. They're always that yellow halogen, but kind of looking light. I could always put those out on the corners here. Oh, with this, not much. I mean, I got a lot of puttying to do, especially in this middle section. It's here. And on the bottom of these, but this is all flat surfaces. So that's not bad, but I am going to go back to window making. Well, we got this puttied. I just had some parts come off here because I actually printed out. I'll show those in a sec. Yeah, I puttied this area here because I printed a new top to cover this boogery up area here and here. But puttied all those other bad little seams or just, surfaces like this. Didn't go too crazy on that because I'm not going to really file them off. Make it look industrial. But then also got the seams where the three pieces went together. And underneath. Which was kind of nice because it was flat enough. I just really had to scrape it into those little grooves. And then there was some chunking, kind of like what you see here, where it chunked like a piece out. So we can, sand those. This underneath is fine because this printed up. But that's why we had a boogery top piece. So what I decided to do in here, it looks pretty good. I'll just go over to top of these little bumps here. These bumps here, I'll just hit the top with a little putty. I could even file them, really. Let's see. I'll probably just give them a file. But I wanted to print these because I like how the printer almost gives it like a sheet metal look. Like how the edges have like a different, because it does the borders like that, but then in the centers it does that. So it kind of gives it that sheet metal look, which I kind of like. Like you're going to see all through here. Here, I hit with putty. We'll smooth it out as best we can. But I like how it gives a sheet metal look. So I just figured out the dimensions on that and just printed, a real thin. I went 1 millimeter, but I probably could have went a little smaller. I think I need to just file a little bit here on this edge. Or I could even just file this edge. I'm almost wondering, is there any reason where I could groove? I guess I could do something with the light that I want. I want to put a light in these four corners and in here. Kind of go yellowy, industrial kind of look. So maybe I should, while I got this out open before I close it up, I can make a pocket for an LED to go in there. These I'm probably just going to print a tube for the LED to go into. Make it look like a fixture somehow. I'm not sure, but I'll make the bulb plug in there. I don't know if we make it round or we make a little angle piece. because this is going to have to be on something. It weighs a lot. There's no way these are going to be able to hold them. So what I'm thinking is drilling a post, a hole, and having a post, so when these sit like this, there's a post here on the 4 end ones. And I think there's enough strength and flexibility. I used a pretty tight infill in the gyro, which is supposed to be really good for every direction. And I'm pushing more than this thing weighs, and this does have some weight, especially in the center here. Even in the back, I can even do maybe, if I do these two, I can even maybe even do one or two, or all of them in the back with a post. But in the front, we'll only be able to do these two here. Yeah, I think with 4 of those on a post will hold this fine. If I have to, I'll add more in the back, because we can't to these ones in the front, because I want them to be able to pop out. And then the other thing is, do I want to still make this be able to be removed? So I'm thinking about seeing if I can have those posts just sit in a pocket. When I print the base, I can make little pockets for the posts to fit into. That way it's not going to slide when you're, messing with this. And then I can just have a connector for the power feed that's going to sneak up. Boy, if I have like an old pair of headphones, you could use the TRS of that, a tip and ring. Tip can be the positive, the ring can be the negative, and plug in, and if I can find a male and a female, or I'll just order one. But but anyway, I could have a way of disconnecting the power and then just lifting this up, and if I want to look at the whole ship, But most of the time, it'll be just taking these off. But yeah, what I was thinking is drilling a hole through, and on the peg, once I drill a hole through, I can fish a wire through, and then maybe use a thin piece of metal, like even a photo etch piece, because that'll conduct power. Soldering on the backside, making it round, soldering on the backside, pulling it back so it's glued tight just to the surface here. So when I plug that arm in, that's one contact. Inside the hole, now this is where it's going to get complicated, because these are the ones that are, I wish it was the pegs were on this side. Of course, it's the backside that has that. But I wish the pegs were on this side. I guess on these, since I have to glue those on, I probably could switch it and glue those pegs on these and then drill the holes through. Make the big, these holes. Probably could do that. But anyway, on the holes on these, I'll stick a spring that's will have the other end of the wire connected to. So then when this plugs in, that metal plate will hit that spring, and there's your, just like a battery does. Because I also want to run just a positive down one of these and just a negative down these others. So I got to figure out how to crisscross. Because there's going to be, I think, 4 of those cob lights here. I'm not going to fill every one of these slots. I'm just going to do the 2 outer ones and then leave a space. And then the next 2. And then the center one will be open. So there'll be only 3 opens. But that'll be enough light too. I don't want it too bright. And do the same here. I'm thinking maybe making a trench down here that I can tuck the wires in and have them kind of come through and touch instead of looping from one to the other. I got to see how they solder. And this one's going to be an LED strip, I think, because the cob lights, the segments, if I'm understanding, it'll be too long. So I'll just run a SMD here, or a little high density strip light, and then run some cob lights here. But yeah, what I did is then, printed this, so this will fit on there nice. And then I printed these so I didn't have to really putty. Less puttying, the better. It only took 20 minutes to print this and these two. Actually, I did 4 of these just to make sure. I know this can fit on there. It's already going to be fun enough to putty in this. Or, not putty, sand in that. So that's what I did with those. And then I have other squares. These are thick squares that go here. And then they get suspended. You can see the old, it tried to print it. There's a little bit of filament. I don't know if you can see there where this, it's actually a smaller one that would go in the center here. And off the corners of these squares go some type of cable, and they go into these corners here. So, and then I also printed pieces for here. I don't remember if I said. And these I'm just going to touch up and then file all these boogery ends nice. And that should be fine. Yeah, so a lot of sanding coming up here. And yeah, a lot of sanding. Get these ready. Well, gotten some putty going on. And I also was thinking, since we're going to put this printed plate over top to give this top, since this printed upside down and just first layer did not adhere correctly, I printed this piece. But since we're doing that, I can actually hide the lights that I want to put on this top. You know, trench it in like this, and then we can hide it with the plate. So that's what I did. Basically, just drilled a hole. Made a mark on this where I wanted the hole, so I found pretty much just center this way, and then this way I use this part to center this way. And then once I marked them off, I taped this down, drilled the 3mm hole for the bulbs to stick through, took this off, and then drilled bigger holes and deep ones for the bulbs to stick in, and then trimmed the bulbs, you know, as small as I could, but still be able to get a resistor and actually solder these wires on. And then just dug a trench with my Dremel out to the side here, and then we'll tuck those down in, and they're going to probably grab power here. But to keep this nice consistency of like conduits instead of them both going one way, we'll just wire them off like that. And so that's what I did. So, you know, this is going to work good. Let's see if this fits now. There we go. Yeah, perfect. And the bulbs aren't resisting when I push down. So when we glue this down, then that's going to look nice. Started sanding, especially on the front side. I'll go through and hit it with a finer grit. Definitely sanded here. I needed to touch up some more, so I added more putty here. And I'm just using the watered down, since this is a hard area to sand. I'm just using the watered down plastic putty, perfect plastic putty. And I may do that with the dome. Once I sand this again, I might just take some of that wet. I might even do that here shortly before that dries up. That's a good idea. Wonder if I should brush it on. That might be the way to go. This will fill in any of those really small imperfections that's pretty much only left. Because as it settles, it'll fill in those little gaps. Oh, I just printed, they just finished like a few minutes ago. I made just these simple little triangular, these are the little Mickey Mouse ears. I do like that. That's a new feature on the new the one update of Bamboo. Usually you can make them yourself, or here's a little app. You just select the part and you hit the little ears, and it puts little tabs on corners. So you don't have to deal with a whole brim. But when you have these sharp corners, they kind of want to lift. So it'll put these little, what I call Mickey Mouse ears, on those little corners, those little sharp corners, especially on a triangle. You have 3 of them, and they pull off like really simple. Sometimes you pull the part off and they stay on the plate. So these here are all they are is just a triangle with a 3mm hole. And I hope this, or 3.5, I think I did 3.5, because I wanted to make sure that these LEDs could just, the whole part of it can go through. So we'll see, because that hole does not look that big. No. I measured that. That was less than 3.5. This part is 3mm, but then that has they have a little rim. Because it was saying 3.26, something like that. And I was like, well, just to play it safe, I'll do 3.5. Well, and that's what, when I looked at it on the plate, I mean, I could always print a couple more and just do them at like a 4. Because I was hoping this, well, the other thing I can do is it still allows me to do that. And that's what I was kind of thinking of doing in the first place. Because then they look more like an industrial outlight, you know, like really it would, you know, maybe have a cage around it to protect it from getting hit. Because all I was going to do before is just push it up to almost that anyway. So what we'll do is we'll just glue them like that, so that actually works. Yet it gives me plenty of room for the wires in there. But then what we'll do is we'll stick these in the corners. Well, I figured I better test this before I glue this top down. Even though I'm a little hesitant. Well, it's these I'm really worried about, because I got to get in these nooks and crannies. This is okay. I'm going to sand this really quick before we do that, but we should probably check these bulbs. Oh, there we go. And I think these wires I got to glue down yet too. But that's going to work for me. They're not going to be overly bright, although they probably be brighter than what's on here, unless I put a higher resistor on it, which might be a good idea, because we don't want these like killing you. And that one's working. Just wanted to make sure nothing happens when they got smushed down in there. Now we should probably mix a little epoxy up quick. Get those and get this top taped and glued down. We'll make sure we get these edges and corners. Try to get it to spread, but it's not the easiest stuff to get to move. Well, nothing to it but to glue it. Let's see. And we got to get over these bulbs without boogering them up. There you are. We get that one. And get that one. And all I gotta do is, there we go. What I'm also doing is making sure I'm pushing it up this way. Nice and tight. Probably should have threw some super glue in there too. But I'm glad I didn't put one of these things in here. I would have already broke it. There we go. That's nothing to it. We'll just let that sit. So, I got her all puttied and sanded. Glued these pieces down, so we're looking good. And then I added these little sconces, little housings. I just made triangles and just made them deep so that it would hide all the wiring, because we're going to have to get a resistor and everything up in there for these other lights on the outer ends. I thought about doing some in the middle, but it's just going to be so hard to keep tapping off that power. So the only real main thing I got to do is run the power all the way around and start getting power out to feed the legs, I guess you would call them. So yeah, and underneath it's all sanded. So this guy is pretty much going the way I hoped it would. I just need to get some thin CA for the wires. What I'll do is I'll hold it in a corner or tack it in a corner and pull across and just put a drop of thin CA and it'll wick itself around the wires, glue it, and hopefully we'll glue it to the walls and you won't see it, the glue. So, and then once it gets painted, it'll look like just conduit going around. But I think once everything's going on, and then I'm going to cut masks out of vinyl for all these squares because they're all the same. So really all I have to do is do one of these and one of these and just multiply. And then the corner ones and stuff on these here. But once you get one corner, I got all four. And then once I get one of these, really only one of these and one of these, they should all be the same. So that makes it nice. That's very symmetrical. I probably could even do ones for up here because I think I'm going to do that in the same color. I think I'm going to do the Drydock in a kind of like what I did the NX1 in. I think it was a zinc or galvanized tin. It might have been the galvanized tin, and the zinc might be the darker gray, metallic gray. That's what I think it is. But mainly it's like a dark silver, like the NX1 kind of is. And then I think the zinc is like a metallic gray, a dark metallic gray. So the dark silver is still way lighter than the dark metallic gray. So, and then that'll give that detail all the way around, and we'll do that up here. This I'm not sure what I'm going to do that. You can kind of think of that almost like a bridge, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I'll do that in like just a silver, and these maybe in something else. I'm not sure. But this I'll probably do the same as these. Pull some of that color up in here. But I'd want to do these different. Maybe in a copper or bronze. Kind of pull that NX1, NX01 vibe in there. Probably should have put a strobe here. Since I'm not going to put the green and red lights on each of those arms, that's just way too hard. It's way too... If it was hollow in a kit, an actual styrene kit that you glue things together and you have a hollow point, I could, because you could just put a light in the leg. These here are actually supposed to be red and green. But if this was a kit that you actually had to glue these two pieces together, you could probably put just an LED in here and just run fiber optics. That is where we're at, but I'm liking that. So it's mainly getting back onto these guys, and first thing I'm going to do is clean up all these areas. I got these parts to print to make those look nice. And then we'll just fix and putty any of this mess. Anywhere where it printed really funky, where it has like kind of ribs, I'm just going to make them like they're damaged hits or something. Maybe this thing was attacked. And then we got to glue these. There's a skinny square here, a rectangle here, and there's double the size rectangles here. And then they're suspended from the four corners. So I'll get some guitar strings and do that. Here's a piece of plastic that it tried to print. Like I think I'm gonna trench these out for an LED strip, and then I'll mask the bulbs, and we'll just paint right over it, and it'll look like mechanisms. Because these are too small for any of the little cob lighting. I'm gonna do the cob lighting in these parts, and this here, and in here, on those. Here, I think it just makes more because the cob lighting, each segment's longer than this little trench. These will work fine. And I'm not going to do every one. That's just way too many. I think A will be too bright. And B, that's just to try to loop between those. And I still got to bury those wires. I think here I'm going to dig a trench and maybe make a plate. So, but if I go every other, start like here, and then you skip that one and do there, and then you skip that one, you know, and so on. That will work, which will give me 4. Because you have the 2 outer ones, and it'll hide this one. For some reason, on every one of these arms, this one trench just didn't print a good bottom, but that don't matter because we're going to put a cob light there. So, and once they're glowing, it's going to make that whole thing look like a lit fixture anyway. I think this is... I always take on something to make a model, and it's almost like this is a whole model in itself. Not like a base. But I think this would be cool. It's like the Galaxy Class Starship for Boyd is being built and coming out of Drydock. Yeah, we'll continue on with these legs. I think that's the best thing to do is start tackling that. This is pretty much ready, except for, like I said, the power. And then we can hit this with a primer. I'm itching to hit this with a primer so I don't see black and Bondo red.